Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food system storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
Today's program has been brought to you by Hearst Ranch, the nation's largest single-source supplier of free-range, all-natural, grass-fed, and grass-finished beef. For more information, visit HearstRanch.com. You're listening to Heritage Radio Network, broadcasting live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. If you like this program, visit heritageradionetwork.org for thousands more.
Good evening, Fermentable Planet Earth. My name is Chris Kuzmi.
And I'm Mary Izette.
And you're listening to
Fuhmentaboudit
on heritageradionetwork.org.
We air every Monday night live at 7 p.m. And Fuhmentaboudit's a show about all things fermentable with a particular focus on homebrew.
Absolutely. Just a couple quick announcements. I know we keep reiterating. Homebrew Alley, National AHA BJCP sanctioned homebrew competition is happening. You can register to enter at homebrewalley.org.
And what day is that on?
That is on February 9th, February 8th and 9th at Alewife, Queens in Long Island City. And we're going to have a great big party on the 9th, announce the winners, and have a really great hang. So please, if you're in the New York area, come join us for that. It is free and open to all 6 p.m. on. And also, here in New York, at the end of February, is New York Craft Beer Week. For more information about that, you can go to NewYorkCityBrewersGuild.com or NYCBeerWeek.com, and that will be February 22nd to March 3rd.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of events that are planned for that, so check out the website and stay tuned for their updates.
In particular, the closing event, which is going to be freaking awesome at Birreria at Italy. This is relevant today because we have our guests today, Peter Hepp from Birreria.
Peter's the head brewer at, I just plain say Birreria, at Italy.
Birreria, the Birreria.
Hey,
we also have our good friend Zach Kinney and homebrewing friend.
I am the Italian today, yes, okay.
Zach Kinney in the studio to keep us company. So we're going to start by, so Peter Hepp, where did you come from in the brewing world? How'd you start?
Well, my first batch of beer was made when I was still in high school in order to... Can we swear on this?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. In order to piss off my chemistry teacher, because I knew I was going to fail the course anyway. And I was like, well, growing up in a rural town outside of Birmingham, nothing can piss a teacher off quicker than alcohol. So I was like, oh, sweet. Well, I will follow the scientific method and do a really good job on this project and still just fail it, just absolutely run it into the ground. So that was my first batch of beer, and I was like, oh, wait, that was a lot easier than you would think. And so shortly after, I joined the Navy right after September 11th and got my ass carted across the sea. And I will tell you, at the end of a day of getting shot at on a regular basis, nothing you want to do is better than drink a beer. And they are just like, no, absolutely not. So I said, yes, absolutely so. And started doing illegal bootlegging out of a couple of tents. And built a subtle notoriety, infamy, if you will, in the community for it until I got busted by the supply officer, and he comes up to me. He's like, "Oh, Petty Officer Hepp, you know who I am?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, my career's like done." I'm like, "I'm going home, sweet." And he's like, no, do you know where I'm from? I was like, "You're from Central Command, dude. Like, are we gonna keep going back and forth like this all day, or is you just gonna go ahead and tell me I'm in trouble?" He's like, "I come from Northern California." And I was like, "Oh, sweet. Are you like a Lagunitas guy, or are you like Sierra Nevada guy? What's your weapon of choice?" He's like, "Okay, I've tried your beer. It's all right." I was like, "Come on!" I was like, "I'm making saisons. It's 115 degrees outside." We had like a space about this size that we had smuggled all the portable AC units from around the camp together to try to keep it at an acceptable temperature in there, and so we eventually got busted. And he was like, "Oh well, I order everything for the camp." I was like, "Well, awesome. The beer spot's get a lot better." And
victory.
And that's exactly what happened.
Amazing.
And and of course, with getting busted by a guy from Northern California, so I started like brewing IPAs constantly. But that's really what sparked me. And once I had gotten out in 2008 from active service, I had still spent 2 more years in the reserve and ended up getting carted back. But when I got out, I went to the New York restaurant school for a period and was like, well, yeah, I don't want to wear a white coat the rest of my life. This is lame. And then went to welding school after that and was like, yeah, I don't want to wear a leather jacket all day.
So it's all about fashion for you.
Yeah.
then.
It is. As you can tell. I mean,
It's a wardrobe, wardrobe of choice.
Exactly.
torn up
He's here in
Dogfish
overalls
Head
here.
T-shirt. But see, that's just it. Like, there's a constant medium, like,
Right.
Getting wear overalls every day, like you can just wear the same T-shirt over and over. But no, that was really, I grew up. My dad, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers, everybody's a mechanic. I'm the only one who doesn't work under a hood for a living, and so it's really important to me to like work with my hands and have like a hard day's work.
Yeah.
And running a brewery by yourself
Yeah.
falls right in line with that.
So it's a far cry. What you're doing now is a
exactly.
far cry from brewing beer in the desert in the Middle East.
But now I'm on top of a roof, which has its own, set of particulars.
So for those of you who have not been there, Italy is this wonderful food complex with a number of different restaurants, a full grocery store, butchers, bread, everything. And on, what floor is that on? It's on the roof, which is the 14th floor. So you go in the back and you take the elevator up to the 14th floor and you get out and you're in this brew pub. And it's only one of 3 brew pubs in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So it's really rather special place. It's beautiful up there. The food is amazing and the beer is amazing as well.
What are the other 2?
508 Gastro Brewery and Chelsea Brewing Company. Our own Kuzme is the brewer at 508. So I'm sitting in a room with
I heard that
2
guy's
of
a jerk.
with 2/3 of the brewers
Just don't
in
lend the guy
Manhattan.
money.
So one of the things, Peter, I was very lucky to hear. We had Peter speak at the New York City Homebrewers Guild meeting, and one of the things that I thought, first of all, I have to say you're a hilarious guy. That was like one of the most entertaining meetings, the better meetings that we've had. But one of the things I was struck by is you had said, a lot of people do collaboration beers, but I work at a collaboration brewery. So tell us a little bit of who are the people involved in that.
Excellent. So, Italy NYC's Birreria and forthcoming Birrerias are a collaboration between Dogfish Head out of Milton, Delaware, Birra del Borgo from Bogarosse, Italy and Lazio, and from Birra Baladin in Plazzo outside of Torino in Piedmonte in Italy. Like I said, we're the only collaboration brewery in the world. So everything that we do is these three guys bouncing ideas off of one another and me trying to facilitate it, which is awesome. The project got up and off the ground. A lot of us have tried Dogfish Head or Birra del Borgo's. My Antonia was really the beer that got things moving. Sam had been invited a couple of times to Slow Foods, Terra Madre, and Presidium's overseas to be a guest speaker talking about his Ancient Ales program and trying to keep things as small scale and throwback as possible, preserving culture through fermented beverages, and really hit it off with Teo and Leo. And they started doing these test batches of beer, and when Sam had been invited to this dinner while they were announcing that Italy was coming to New York City, Sam was like, it'd be awesome. You should put a beer garden and brew pub on the roof of that thing. And the Italians were like, yeah, great idea, Sam. And he's like, okay, well, I guess this is happening now. And about 24 months later, Italy NYC opened, and then about 9 months after that, we got to open up, because you can imagine the logistic nightmare that is putting a brew pub in the middle of Manhattan on top of a roof.
Yeah,
we had to close down 23rd
amazing.
Street and crane up all the equipment.
Wow. Yeah.
And
how big of a system is it over there?
3.5 barrel.
3.5 barrel.
We've got a couple of Kamba uni tanks.
Okay.
All the beer that we do is cask.
Mm-hmm.
One, it saves a lot of space. We're 600 square feet. That's the average size of a New York studio apartment.
Yeah.
I think whenever they designed it, that they were being really clever. It's the average size of a New York studio apartment. Well, that's really lame, dude. Why don't you be like, it's the average size of a penthouse on Park Avenue? But it's a lot of fun. Getting to do nothing but collaborations. We have 2 year-round beers. We do a dark English mild ale with chestnuts, and we do an American-style pale ale with wild Roman thyme, and then the rest of the time it's whatever pops in the heads of those three guys. And if you're familiar with Baladin, Del Borgo, and Dogfish Head, imagine if they have, this awesome JV Northwest built small batch 3.5 barrel system, and be like, you know what, I don't have to worry about, wasting 200 barrels on this.
Yeah. So
that's
totally
what happens.
Off center. Right. Yeah.
Off center, way
Totally off center.
So that's what I get to try to facilitate. So we'll come up with an idea, and I'll send out this recipe. I'll be like, I got this really awesome idea for this saison. I'll send it off to Sam. He's like, that sounds like a great idea. Well, you know what you should do is you should add 17 new ingredients to it. And I'm like,
of course, because you can.
That sounds awesome.
Right,
that'll only take me the next 2 weeks to source and another 8 hours during the brew day. Cool. And then, Teo is the godfather of Italian craft brewing. And he'll, in his Piedmontese driven, broken English, try to be like, would be really awesome. I'm like, I can only imagine. And, he'll explain to me, a dreamscape that he had and how it will pertain to this beer. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's 6 more hours on the brew day. That'll work. And then Leo gets a hold of it, and Leo is a molecular biologist by training. And his entire staff is all just some of the brightest minds in brewing. They've got 2 guys who are no bullshit rocket scientists. They study propulsion and combustible fuel at a postgraduate level, and they make beer for a living. And so he'll get a hold of it. He's like, what we should do is a 3-step decoction mash, and then what we should do is, once you get out of the primary, you should shift over to another vessel, and then we'll pitch a new yeast. And then when we get into I'm like, oh yeah,
Like, yeah,
me
of
now.
course.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's cool. I'll go ahead
Easy,
and
of
cancel
course.
my vacation, dude. That sounds awesome. So it will definitely not be a double batch day. But it's incredible to watch these guys just bounce ideas off one another. And when you're talking collaborations, like I said, most of us are used to, our earliest brew days were with our buddies. One, it's easy to talk your friends into cleaning up what you screwed up. And two, it's always better to have a couple different sets of eyes on it.
Absolutely.
Guys who I'm predominantly I love brewing with wheat. Like that's where I'm most comfortable. But, some of my buddies are more IPA guys, and we get together and we're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Well, why don't we just do that, and we don't have to worry about doing this? And it's like, oh, okay. Now you do that. You got like 4 of your friends together, and you can just keep bouncing those ideas off of one another, and it's just like never ending. And that's the awesome part of what I do, is just being able to not be afraid to tell your friend, nah, that's just a terrible idea.
Yeah, I think that's one
But
thing.
also to listen to them.
Sure.
Exactly. Just
Yeah.
like getting to just to converse. Like hopefully you and I will get to do soon, Chris.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's good. You can really learn, even as a home brewer, like you said.
Oh,
You
most
can learn
definitely.
from your friends, and a lot of times, I started brewing with friends. Now, then I, brewed by myself a lot. Now Chris and I brew together. But
Zach and I brewed the White House
Yeah.
Honey Porter and changed our recipe based on that.
4 more
Four more beers. Baby. Yeah.
No, that's definitely the best way. I run a single man brewery. I can do everything by myself, but getting to bring in folks like time after time, we've done. Anytime that I get in touch with my buddies who, brew on the West Coast or brew in the Midwest, and they're like, "Oh, hey, I'm in town." I'm like, "Hey, cool. I will change the brewing schedule and we'll hang out." So it's just a lot of fun, and it's being able to get insight that is pre-fermentation. It's one thing to take your beer to your club and everyone be like, "Oh, you know what I would have
Right.
done?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Hey, cool. I'm really glad I just wasted 8 weeks on that." Like, fermentation space would have been a little more fun than that, but
Well, we have to take a little quick break right
Yep.
now.
we'll be back.
Pause for the cause. We'll talk more about what kind of things you're actually getting into
Yep.
when we come back on Fuhmentaboudit.
Hearst Ranch grass-fed beef, pasture raised on 150,000 acres in Central California. Hearst Ranch grass-fed beef, free range, sustainably produced, humane. Hearst Ranch grass-fed beef, the authentic flavor of the American West.
We all know what a foodie is, but what's foodiness?
Foodiness is turning us into those chubby, slushy, slurping, lounge chair-bound morons in Wally, plugged in, pumped full of sugar, and brain dead.
Chef Erica Wides is here to fight against foodiness.
You have to keep drinking the Let's Get Real Kool-Aid for it to start to work.
Let's get real. Rediscover real food every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. on heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome back to Fuhmentaboudit
Fuhmentaboudit.
on Heritage Radio Network.
Hey.
So we're back with Peter Hepp of you can say
Birreria.
yes.
La birreria. La birreria.
At Italy in Manhattan.
And we're going to talk about, so that's one other special thing about Birreria is that you have access to amazing ingredients. I mean, the fact that you do your two base beers, one has chestnuts and the other has Roman thyme, is pretty
Roman
unusual. So, in particular, I had tasted the Nicoletta, which is a beautiful beer, and so I had tasted this at a Sandy benefit at the Brooklyn Brewery a couple of months ago, and Peter and I were talking about brewing with honey. So I think that's where we want to talk. You've brewed a number of beers with honey. Mm-hmm. And actually, Chris just brewed the White House Honey Porter at 508.
I did a brown ale just before that, but I used two different methods for both of them. And to be honest, before that, all I'd ever really done with honey in the brewing process has primed my wit beers with it, because I think it's a great priming sugar, and you get a different kind of effervescence with that, using honey as opposed to corn sugar.
Yeah. So, what are some of your tips and learnings for brewing with honey, or advice? Relevant to what your experience, and then also anything that you could offer homebrewers would be great.
So when you use honey in your porter, which phase of the brewing process did you use?
We threw it in, actually. I was with Zach, and we talked a little bit about it. The White House does it 15 minutes before the end of the boil. Mm-hmm. But I doubt they're doing a whirlpool. And so I threw it in right at flame out, and right at the start of the whirlpool. I figured that it was hot enough to pasteurize it or clean it or keep any funk out of there, but so late enough to keep sort of the special aspects of the honey that I kind of wanted to preserve and feature in the beer.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying this was some local honey that you sourced from the Finger Lakes, right?
Yes, yeah. I got it from. I bought it in McCarran Park at the farmers market, and it's from Nature's Way Farms up in the Finger Lakes region of New
Absolutely.
York.
Before we even get started, always buy your local honeys. Use unpasteurized honey. Yeah. You can. Like I can talk all day. We could spend 45 minutes of me just like geeking out, like, honey's 38% fructose, 32% glucose, 2% sucrose, and then like 3%, including proteins, enzymes, and organic acids and esters. Because it's no bullshit. Like honey's incredible. I mean, we were making mead way before we were making beer, and that's like the merriment of those two. I think is just so incredible. When I use honey, I've done it also during the mash.
Oh, interesting.
Like I said, they carry over a lot of enzymes that they had gained in the abdomen of the bee.
Mm-hmm.
That can help break down any of your raw grains. But I find I do the same thing. Generally, I'll start at like 30 minutes just so, like I said, my system's kind of like big enough, but I can only run like one of the steam jackets at a time. So I'm always worried about like dipping down on, below boiling and being like, oh shit, I got 5 minutes to get this back up, or I'm gonna have to dump this batch. But by adding it later, I mean, you only need about 15 minutes of it above 185 degrees to make sure that you're fully sanitized. But like back to that, by using a large amount of honey, you've got to remember, like I said, 38% of it is fructose, which is harder for the yeast to break down. So using like in the beer that we're actually drinking right now, that you guys should come and visit me and drink.
It's delicious.
This is really, really good.
You guys are
what
jealous.
Is this beer?
Jealous.
So this is called Pomona. We can't even really call it beer because a a third of the fermentables come from wheat, a third of the fermentables come from honey, and a third of the fermentables come from pressed apples. We did this beer, and it's all New York ingredients. The raw wheats from Wild Hive Farms. The pressed apples are from Breezy Hill Orchards, and the honey's from Catskills Provisions. I'm a big advocate of going to the farmer's market, and just like you had said, like being at Italy, a lot of times I just go downstairs and just draw inspiration.
Lucky bastard.
Sure.
But everybody can do that with their farmer's market. Like, you spend the weekend, go around, like maybe you see a pie or something that somebody had brought, and you're like, oh wow, I just draw inspiration from things that are around you. Don't try to emulate what you see on your television. Right.
And that's one thing that we had talked about doing in the show, is kind of doing a green market beer every couple of weeks. Yeah. So, because that's a wonderful thing. I mean, in New York City, almost none of us have gardens. At least those of us who live in Manhattan and Brooklyn. I mean, you're lucky if you do. So we have to source. If we want local, we can't grow it. We have to source it. And we do have absolutely amazing green markets with not only fresh fruits and veggies, but locally made goods like honey and even some great ciders and some baked goods and pies and cheeses and all kinds of stuff. So it is really amazing to not only get inspiration, like you said. I mean, the seasonal pies are incredible, and that's actually one thing I saw a video of somebody making a strawberry rhubarb pie beer. And that's one thing I'd like to try.
I've done that. It's on point. Like when we're talking about the beer that we have right here, like my straight up inspiration was apple pie. So I was like, okay, I need something that's going to be bready. So I'm going to use raw wheat, and I want something that tastes like apples, so I'm going to use pressed apples. And then and I need something that's that glaze. Next time, it's always like, once I had finished it, I was like, son of a bitch, I should have used raw rye, like to give it like that little bit of spice. It was like flame out, and I was like, oh, it was like during the second batch, like literally, like 45 minutes to that. It's just like, it's like losing my mind. But I'm gonna do this probably again for Earth Day, because it's just all New York ingredients.
Yeah,
and it's just a lot of fun beer. Like I said, I keep 2 real ales on, and that keep we get a lot of folks in who are like, oh well, I like stouts. I'm like, well, this is stout's little brother, enjoy a mild. Or I like really hoppy beers. I'm like, well, you're gonna love this, enjoy. But this gives people who aren't really into, because at Italy we get people from all over, and not everybody's into real ale. Most people have never had a cask beer before, and they're like, no, that's just not me right now. And giving them a real cider, because New York, we should be a little more cider.
Absolutely.
Apple production.
But there's a great movement right now towards that end, which I think is really great.
Like, we work with like Critz Farms, and we use, like I said, Breezy Hill. Cortland apples and bittersweet apples, Kingston apples are number one in Detroit. But we used honey in most of the beers that we did this year. I'm thinking I did.
And do you use the same? Do you use the same method every time? To what end do you use different approaches?
So depending on the amount, like a fermentable, that the finished gravity is going to be percentage wise. Like, I'm not going to make a beer that I'm trying to bounce anything else out of, like with, say, like chestnut honey, which is like really, really aromatic and really, really dominating. If I'm relying on a third of my final gravity to come from that, you're not going to taste anything else. It's going to be a straight up.
Yeah.
You might
chestnut honey beer.
It's going to be chestnut meat. No, there's going to be no braggot about it. You're not going to get any. You could do like that and nothing but roast barley, and you'll be like, nope, this definitely is made with chestnut. But it all depends. Make yourself a little tea with it first. Start with a liter of hot water or a quart of hot water, and dilute it to what you want your final gravity to be, so you can smell it, taste it, and get an idea the percentage that you're going to get that's going to carry over to the end.
Because you will get a lot of, depending what type of honey. I mean, you mentioned chestnut. Another buckwheat I know is a very
honey,
dark, strong honey, and those flavors and aromas will carry over into the final product.
Absolutely. So, and especially because you're using it at the end of the boil, it's not like a lot of it's going to get driven out. And, you're going to get pulled up through your stack fan. So keep that in mind. But with that in mind, I do like using like wildflower honey. Clover honey. It's nice. Heather honey is nice, but I want you smell it and be like, whoa, that's intense. Like, oh, well, cool. And then you don't have to end up hopping it to no end to just get some aromatics off of it. And a lot with the yeast, Belgian yeast, love it. I use a lot of champagne yeast with it, just because I used to make a lot of mead over in the sand because it was super easy. Sure. But but when you're using honey, you also have to keep that in mind. Using honey is 38% fructose, which doesn't break down as easy because it's a complex sugar. So you need to use some sort of fermenting aid. You need to use some sort of yeast nutrient that you can get at your local homebrew shop, or whether you use Northern Brewer or. Are we gonna have to pay for that? Like, if
your local homebrewer or internet homebrew
go see the guys
supply.
over at
Brooklyn Homebrew, Bitter Nesters,
Brooklyn
Kitchen.
Yeah. So especially, I mean, I always use yeast nutrient when I brew, but especially important with honey beers. So because those yeast need a little boost,
because what'll happen,
a little backup.
Absolutely, because what'll happen is you'll get a false. What we call like the false positive that it's went ahead and you've come to your terminal gravity, but it's just churning a little slower. Like it's already, say it's already broken down all the glucose and like any remaining sucrose that might be around, but that fructose is still hanging out, and you need to give it a little something to put a pep in its step, or pitch a little stronger than you normally would. And keep your temp up a little higher, so you get your viability a little higher, around 72. Because
especially with Belgian yeast,
absolutely. Because like I said, you've got those extra enzymes. And that's the awesome thing about honey is itself. As long as you can keep it from all and out. It's vitamins A, B, D, E, K. Manganese, sodium. Sulfur, potassium, manganese, and like a bunch of like other enzymes are in it already. And it's just
cool.
What you should have in there.
Yeah.
Like you said, with like priming, because we're like I said, an all cask brewery.
Right. What do you prime with? Do you
it all depends.
Take Krausen from a fermenting beer? Do you?
It depends, like on what I have in the unit tanks at a time. If I can Krausen, I will. From an old, I'll sacrifice one firkin and make a little blanket pressure and drive it out and grouse them with that. But most of the time, I'll use either honey, maple syrup, sometimes, just Demerara sugar.
Love it.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, this is some great advice. I have not had much experience brewing with honey. I've made meads before. So I'm definitely going to take some of these learnings home and start thinking of some new brews. So thank you very much to Peter Hepp for joining us. If you are next time, if you guys are in New York City or if you're visiting, please check out Birreria at Italy, New York. It's on 24th and Broadway, correct?
Yeah, 200 Fifth Avenue.
200 Fifth Avenue. It's an absolutely amazing experience, and definitely make sure you make it up to the 14th floor rooftop to have some of Peter's beers.
Great views, great beers.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it really is an incredible experience. I took my parents there when they were visiting for the holidays, and of all the things we did in New York City, that was her favorite place.
That's her favorite.
I mean, she likes beer, but she's not like a huge beer lover. Man, she loved that. It was She was blown away. She's still talking about it weeks later. So it is a fantastic place.
Definitely visit them during New York Craft Beer Week, and hopefully maybe the three of us, you, me, Mark Sumeda from Chelsea Brewing Company, will have a collaboration.
Do our own collaboration.
Yeah.
That would be freaking awesome.
The brew pubs unite.
That's right.
Everybody bring your own honey.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Oh, wait, let me write that down. That's actually a really good idea.
I love it.
So we want to remind you that Heritage Radio Network is a not-for-profit, and that your membership will help them help keep us on the air and help them all around. Also, members get 5% off all purchases at both Brooklyn Homebrew and Bitter and Esther's, as well as $1 off all pints at Jimmy's number 43. So that's reason enough.
Absolutely. Thanks to our engineer, Joe Galarraga, our producer, Jack Inslee, Roberta's in Bushwick for hosting us, Peter Hepp, Zach Kinney, and Jaren David,
our photographer. And we will speak to you next week, same time, 7 p.m. live on heritageradionetwork.org. Good night.
Fuhmentaboudit.
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 Thanks for listening to this program on heritageradionetwork.org. You can find all of our archived programs on our website or as podcasts in the iTunes Store by searching Heritage Radio Network. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at @heritage_radio. You can email us questions at any time at info@heritageradionetwork.org. Heritage Radio Network is a non-profit organization. To donate and become a member, visit our website today. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.